Hi, my name is Cassandra Beltran, and this is how I envision my literacy program. Let's start with the physical environment of my future classroom. When I envision my future classroom, I see my students utilizing flexible seating. I believe it is important to offer my students multiple options to feel comfortable in their learning environment. If you were to walk into my classroom, you would find my classroom similar to cursive and crayons on Instagram. This is a photograph of her flexible seating classroom. Some of the options I will include in my classroom can be found here, such as the scoop rockers, lowered tables, stability balls, traditional chairs, and so forth. I also found this photograph on Instagram by Flexible and First. These are great flexible seating options too. I believe organization has a significant impact on the physical environment of a classroom. I think it is essential to use containers to separate supplies, just like this picture from the primary pal on Instagram. I also like that she has her containers labeled with words and pictures so that students who cannot read still know where to find and put back the items. This is also beneficial so that students can connect written language with the things they represent. In addition to feeling strongly about classroom organization, I also believe teachers need to be organized. I like how Michelle from Pocketful of Primary on Instagram uses Sterilite drawers to organize her copies for the week as well as her teacher supplies. Now let's talk about my favorite section that is part of the physical environment of a classroom. How should I set up my classroom library? The professional book called Guiding Readers and Writers by Fontes and Pinnell suggests to display picture books face front to attract readers to the illustrations, use attractive colored baskets to hold books, label the baskets, and sort books by the author, genre, series, topic, theme, and special features. Michelle has her classroom library set up this way. I like that her baskets and books are both labeled with the same symbol so that struggling readers know exactly where each book belongs. You can see here how she uses a tree as a symbol to represent Magic Treehouse books and a bow to represent the Junie B. Jones books. This helps to keep the library organized. A great classroom layout starts with great organization. Creating a comfortable, organized, print-rich classroom creates a welcoming classroom environment. Next, let's talk about the materials that scaffold literacy. So what materials should I use to scaffold literacy development? According to readingrockets.org, classroom materials that help build a literacy-rich environment include menus, phone books, and other written materials such as magazines, books, recipes, and so on. It is also recommended to scaffold literacy through literacy centers, such as having centers for writing, listening, art, building, computer, word work, and many more. Centers are great for meeting specific learning purposes that scaffold literacy development. I will also use leveled readers so I know that my students are reading and receiving appropriate instruction at their level, and visual aids such as graphic organizers to aid students with their comprehension. I plan to use technology to scaffold literacy by having students audio record their reading so that they are able to listen to their own reading as well as to others. Now let's talk about the type of instruction that I will employ in my classroom for behaviorism, cognition, constructivism, and socio-constructivism. For behaviorism, I will use strategies that can be used in the classroom to promote learning, starting with positive and negative reinforcement through the use of Class Dojo. Class Dojo is a behavior system that reinforces positive and negative behavior by giving or taking points. Students then choose the reward based on a point system. When I think about cognition, I think about Bloom's taxonomy. I want my students to be able to apply, evaluate, and create so that they can become problem solvers. Essentially, I want them to think about their thinking. The constructivist approach makes me think of schema and activating prior knowledge. Some ways I plan to activate prior knowledge and students' comprehension of new knowledge is to use graphic organizers such as KWL charts, Think, Pair, Share, and carousel brainstorming. For socio-constructivism, I envision my students collaborating with one another. I see them working in groups, interacting with one another, but also learning from each other. I believe that this offers an opportunity for students to become independent learners, but also learn from each other. So now let's talk about cognitive, linguistic, social, and cultural diversity. For cognitive diversity, I believe it is important as a teacher to figure out how my students make sense of new information. How do they process this new information? Once I know their processing style, I can form small groups with students of the similar learning style and give them differentiated instruction. According to readingrockets.org, teachers can help linguistically diverse students by conducting formative assessments to screen for reading problems and monitoring progress, providing intensive small group reading interventions for English learners, providing extensive and varied vocabulary instruction, and scheduling regular peer-assisted learning opportunities throughout the day. I plan to do this and more to help my English language learners. How should I meet social and cultural diversity in the classroom? According to the professional book, Finding Joy in Teaching Students of Diverse Backgrounds by Sonia Nieto, suggests that teachers can meet social and cultural diversity by developing a social justice approach to teaching. It is suggested that teachers bring in their own identity into the classroom and to embrace their own identity as well as their students. This will help build strong bonds with students and an accepting environment for all. Teaching students to embrace cultural differences prepares them for the workforce when they work in a diverse workplace. I plan to help my English language learners succeed in my classroom by learning about my students' culture, understanding their linguistic traits, and using this knowledge to inform my teaching. Next, let's talk about motivation. I plan to motivate students by giving them ownership and responsibility with classroom jobs. I will also use Class Dojo to motivate students by rewarding positive behavior. I can spark motivation in students by relating lessons to their lives, such as providing them with a Class Dojo debit card to use at the dojo store. Most importantly, I will set the stage to engage through classroom transformations to build excitement within my students, whether it be through text feature surgery or a book tasting. Lastly, we'll talk about assessment. I plan to use formative, summative, and authentic assessment in my classroom. I see myself using a lot of formative assessment to check for understanding and to inform me if I need to modify my instruction to help students understand the material. I plan to do this by using exit tickets, think, pair, share, strategic questioning, thumbs up, thumbs down, Kahoot, and analyzing student work. I plan to use authentic assessment by checking students' journal entries, projects, discussions, and presentations. I plan to use summative assessments for the end of a unit. I can't wait till the day I have my own classroom. Thanks so much for watching my Envision a Literacy program.